Alright, I already talked about my top 10 favorite Star Wars comics, and now it's time for my least favorite comics. So let's just get right into it with number 10. On my number 10, we have Vaders Quest. Okay, so this was supposed to be a short mini series about how Darth Vader learned that it was Luke Skywalker who destroyed the Death Star. And it's just weird. I don't know, this comic just didn't do it for me at all. I don't know what it is, the story is just strange and not really engaging. I also didn't really like the artwork, and just, you would think the story about how Vader finds out it was Luke Skywalker, that's the name of the pilot who destroyed the Death Star, I would have expected something bigger, in a way at least, but this is just kind of, I don't know, I don't hate it, but I was disappointed by it, because it's just like, there it is. So that's why I have it at number 10. Number 9. This one is also really disappointing, but there is a lot of good stuff in here. Number 9 is Knight Errand by John Jackson Miller. I actually really like the world this is set in, the time it's set in. It's 50 years or so before the Darth Bane trilogy. I like the villains. I like pretty much the artwork is fine. It's fine, I enjoy it. The artwork is nice. The story itself is also pretty good, actually. But the problem is, the main character is fucking terrible. Kara Holt is just not interesting at all. And it would be different if she was like a terrible, like in the sense that she's terribly written or anything. She's just bland. I don't feel anything for her. And it's so weird because John Jackson Miller created characters like Zane Carrick from the KOTOR comics, who's one of my favorites. And it's like what happened? Like, he knows how to write characters, and somehow he failed with Kara Holt. And she is so just bland and uninteresting that it immediately drags the rest of the comic down. But like I said, there is a lot of stuff to enjoy in Knight Errant, in the comic series, and even in the book. The villains are great. All these different Sith kingdoms, that's all interesting stuff, interesting world building stuff, all good. But the main character is really shit. And I mean, if you can get past that, you might enjoy it. But for me, it's number 9. On number 8, we have pretty fucking weird thing, Jedi versus Sith. So this is basically the final of the Darth Bane Path of Destruction novel, which, to be fair, this comic came out first, and I think it was the first big Darth Bane story, but it's not really good at all. I would say the adaptation of it, if you want to call it that, in the Darth Bane novel by Drew Carpathian is a lot better. This comic is weird. It feels like it doesn't know who it's aimed at, because you have like really brutal moments, like Darth Bane slaughtering like a couple of children, and the children's dead. He has to watch before Darth Bane also kills him, and that's pretty damn fucking brutal. But it's like in this weird kiddie art style. It's like this childish art style. I don't know what this is. And I have made this joke before. Jedi vs. Sith, the comic, is basically Happy Tree Friends, but in Star Wars. It's so weird. Our main focus are these kid characters. And horrible, violent stuff happens to them, and it just feels off. So I wasn't a fan of that at all. Jedi vs. Sith, it was, I don't know if I would recommend this. I like with Knight Errant, I can say, okay, there's nice elements. This one, I mean, it was the first bigger Darth Bane story, I guess, but it doesn't really have much. Like, just read the book, Path of Destruction by Drew Carpathian, and you get it. You get a better version, because this comic really doesn't. It's just not good. And while a lot of it has to do with the art style, like I said, Happy Tree Friends, you have like brutal violence mixed with childish, kid-friendly, happy artwork. It's weird. The story itself also just, it doesn't work here for some reason. I don't know why, but here it is at my number 8. Number 7, we get The Old Republic. And I want to specify, this is not counting The Lost Sons, written by Alexander Freed, which is the third story arc, this little miniseries, because that one was actually good. The first 2 story arcs in this little comic series are such fucking blatant cash grabs because the MMO came out and they didn't want to miss a chance to make some more money. The first story arc especially, it looks horrible. The artwork is fucking atrocious. Like, you can tell they didn't give a fuck. The story is bullshit. Pretty much for both of these. I don't even remember the titles, okay? It's just terrible and forgettable and just doesn't do anything. Maybe if you are a big fan of the Old Republic, you will like it, maybe? Like I said, I don't know anything about video games. I don't know. But I enjoyed like stuff like Annihilation and the Lost Sons comic. But the first few issues of this comic run, it was just shit. And I think it was 6 issues. The first 3 issues were like one story arc, and then issues 4 to 6 were the second story arc, but 4 to 6 happened before 1 to 3, which is also weird. So anyway, The Old Republic number 7, hate it, I don't like it. And now number 6. Okay, this is... I don't think anyone is gonna disagree with that one at all. Darth Vader and the Ninth Assassin is fucking stupid garbage. I'm not gonna do it like Matt Wilkins and put all 4 Darth Vader miniseries in here, because Darth Vader in the Ghost Prison and Darth Vader and the Lost Command were actually decent. Like, sure, they didn't need to exist, but they were written good, they looked good. They were fine, okay? They were fine. And then we get to The Ninth Assassin, and I think the other one was called Cry of Shadows. Ninth Assassin and Cry of Shadows were written by the same guy. And as I found out during my research, that guy never wrote a comic before, and you can tell. Darth Vader and the Ninth Assassin was his first attempt at writing a comic, and it sucks. It sucks. I don't like the story at all. It's stupid. I don't like the artwork, and more specifically, I don't like the character design for most of the new characters in here, like the assassin himself or the guy who hired the assassin. This story is just nothing. This is desperate cash grab trash. Like, this is just shit. At least with Ghost Prison and Lost Command, they tried to tell a good story. In my opinion, they succeeded. I enjoyed those too. But this, no. That's why it's my number 6. Moving on, we get to number 5, which is, no surprise, Star Wars Tales. For one simple reason. Mixing non-canon stories with officially canon stories might be the dumbest fucking thing I have ever heard. This is the reason people think Skippy the Jedi droid was canon to Legends. This, I don't know what the fuck they were thinking. Like, it would be one thing, okay? It would be one thing if all of Star Wars Tales was non-canon, short story comics, and they just gave the authors the freedom to do whatever they wanted. And that was the entire series. I would be like, similar to like the Star Wars Visions TV show they are doing right now in the Disney canon. I would be like, okay, whatever. Like Infinities. Doesn't matter, I can skip it, I can ignore it if I want to. But that's not what they did. They kind of did it. They made a bunch of joke stories, like hate leads to lollipops with young baby Darth Maul and Skippy the Jedi droid, and then they mixed in stuff. They would say, oh no, this is really canon, like this counts, this happened. And it's just confusing. Why did they do this? This is just dumb. Not to mention, like, even the good Tales comics are at most mediocre. Okay, we get some, yeah, okay, good, decent ones, but most of them, like, mediocre and really just trash. This is just confusing. I have to put Star Wars Tales at number 5. Which brings me to number 4, which is a comic that I'm pretty sure not many people have heard of, which is weird because it's the sequel to a very, very popular Star Wars thing. My number 4 is Shadows of the Empire Evolution by Steve Perry, the original author of the Shadows of the Empire novel. And this, I didn't know this comic existed for the longest time. And then I read it and then I realized why. This comic is shit. This was Steve Perry's first comic he ever wrote. You can tell, really. And it's just nothing, really. We have, again, a terrible main character in Guri. She was Prince Shizor's personal assistant, and I don't know why Steve Perry chose her to be the main character in this sequel. I mean, the basic idea is somewhat interesting. Guri was the right hand to Prince Shizor, now he's dead, and the crime syndicate is pretty much fucked and done, but they want Guri because she knows a bunch of secrets from Shizor and it can help them in their criminal stuff, and it's like, okay, could be interesting for like a short story or so, but the comic itself, no. And then shoehorning in Han, Luke, Leia, Lando, Chewie, all the characters, they need to be in here too, and just doesn't work at all. Also the title, and I know this sounds nitpicky, but really, Steve, really, you couldn't pick a more terrible title. Shadows of the Empire Evolution. Like, stuff like Evolution, Revolution, like, these kind of titles are so cliche and just sounds like these stupid Resident Evil movies. Shadows of the Empire, Underworld. Yeah, this comic is, skip it. Okay, number 3. We get to Invasion. Oh boy, where to begin? First off, I'm not a big fan of the art style. It's like, that's the kind of art style I could swallow if the story was decent. But the story isn't decent at all. Again, we have a main character, Finn Gelfridian, and Finn is... I'm not gonna join Matt Wilkins and say he's like the most boring, just nothing shit character. I didn't completely hate him. It's something of a positive, I didn't completely hate him, but the story around him just didn't work at all. Because there are so many weird, almost contradictions to New Jedi Order, with this series being set between Vector Prime and the first Dark Tide book. It's just not good. Not good at all. Which is a shame. Because this is similar to Knight Errant. This is a series that had a lot of potential. Like when you hear what this comic series is, you think, oh, this sounds actually pretty damn good. It's set during the New Jedi Order, starring new characters. It's a different story than what we saw in the books, but what happens in the books, also takes place or gets mentioned here. Some of the characters from the books show up, like obviously Luke and the Solo kids and stuff. And all the while we follow this new main character on his own journey during the Yuuzhan Vong War, becoming a Jedi, and you think, okay, that all sounds decent. But in the end, Invasion falls flat. Doesn't work. Sadly, it has some interesting ideas. I don't want to spoil it. There is a Jedi mentor type character who turns out to be kind of a bad guy. And that was interesting, but it doesn't go anywhere because this fucking series got cancelled after the third story arc because no one was buying it. And I don't know, This also feels kind of cynical or like sinister, because as we know, there was a lot of bad blood between Del Rey and Dark Horse, which apparently started with New Jedi Order itself, because Dark Horse had an idea for an invasion storyline. That's what they were setting up with Crimson Empire 2 and Nomanoa and everything, and then Del Rey did their own thing with New Jedi Order and the Yuuzhan Vong, and Dark Horse pretty much did nothing during New Jedi Order, during the books when they were coming out. Like, they did nothing except the Chewbacca comic. And this series came out years later after New Jedi Order was finished, and it feels like Randy Stradley was saying like, okay, now it's our turn. Okay, now we're gonna show you. We're gonna do our invasion series. And then it fucking flopped. And it flopped hard. It is a real shame, because in concept, this series sounds awesome and it should really be great and it should work, but it simply doesn't. And it's a shame. I would have loved to have a good New Jedi Order comic series. It's an interesting thing for people who don't want to read books, because books are long and boring and gay. So they can read the fucking comics and they would still get a story. They wouldn't get the full story of the Yuuzhan Vong War, but they would get a story set during the war to enjoy. And you know what? That would have been nice. But Invasion as it is, not good. Number 3. And so we get to number 2, and number 2 indeed. Number 2 is The Star Wars. Where do I even begin? I know it's not canon. I mean, I didn't put the Infinity comics on here, which, by the way, I kind of enjoy in their own way. Because the thing is, the marketing with this, they claimed this is a comic adaptation of George Lucas' original screenplay. And then everybody was like, ooh, sounds interesting. But it's not an adaptation of George Lucas' original screenplay. It's a hodgepodge thrown together mess of different screenplay versions. And it's just, I don't get it. This is just boring. Like, we get some, there are characters that are named differently. We have Anakin Starkiller, and Luke Skywalker is a 60-year-old general, and Han Solo is a green giant Shrek monster. Okay, but these are not interesting characters, and the story isn't interesting. The only thing you may get a kick out of is them referencing stuff that you know, but in different ways. Like when they name a planet that we know, but it's something else in this version, and you're gonna be like, ooh, and that's kind of it. The story isn't good, the characters aren't good, it's way too long. How long was this? 7 or 8 issues? Why? That's insane. And the artwork isn't even good. I heard they tried to replicate like Ralph McQuarrie's artwork with this, but I don't see it at all. This was just a cash grab. Nothing more. And speaking of cash grabs, after this piece of shit, and at number 2 we get to my number 1. Which is the biggest piece of shit of them all. And I don't think anyone is gonna defend this choice. My number 1 worst Star Wars comic, maybe ever, Star Wars 2013. Written by Brian Wood. What is there to say that hasn't already been said? This is the most uncreative, cynical, calculated, purely evil thing to ever come out of Dark Horse Comics. They knew they were fucked. They were losing the license. And they just wanted to get some money before they leave. So they hired the comic author version of Jar Jar Abrams, Brian Wood. From what I have been told, because I don't know this firsthand, but I have been told so by other people who know his work, He is very much like Jar Jar Abrams. He is completely unimaginative, has zero creativity, and he always gets brought in when it's time to relaunch a comic series. And he just does what other authors have already done because the fans liked it and he's just doing it again. And that's exactly what happened here. A little bit of Wraith Squadron in here, a little bit courtship of Princess Leia. We have Han versus Boba. All the boring shit that we have seen a million times. It's all in here. With an art style that, I don't know, it's not the worst, but everybody looks really gaunt and just not right. But it's not the worst art style, I would say. But the story is just absolutely nothing. It doesn't care about continuity. And you know why? Because Dark Horse didn't care anymore about continuity. This was 2013. They knew what was coming. So, they would actually say, you have to read this as if Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi don't even exist. And this is the only sequel to the original Star Wars movie. So that, yeah, you know, yeah, because, yeah, so it's newcomer friendly. You know, yeah, you have, yeah, isn't that cool? No. You were already doing comics like that. Like, who the fuck, people can pick up the fucking Empire comic run and read it and they would be like, oh yeah, like they would get it. And if you say, oh, but you have to imagine it like it's coming out after only the first Star Wars movie was out and no other movies, isn't that a creative? No. If I want that, I could just read the fucking original Marvel Star Wars comics, where that was actually the case. Brian Wood's Star Wars 2013 run is embarrassing, pathetic, cynical, just disgusting, despicable. It's just, wow, this was Dark Horse at their low point. Their lowest low point. And of course, it was the best-selling thing they did in years. Fuck my life. Because they knew it. Like I said, this was calculated. They knew the fucking casuals. They would eat this shit up. And have no clue how shit it really is. Because that's what the casual fan wants. They don't give a fuck. Dawn of the Jedi? With 26,000 years before the films, what's this? No, they want, oh, I want Luke, Han, and Leia. I know who that is. And I want them young. And I want them between A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back for some reason. In the worst fucking era ever. The Rebellion era. The Rebellion era is fucking garbage. But the casuals love it. Because they just want young Luke, Han, and Leia. I don't get it. I seriously don't get it. And this run, it's like the worst I've ever seen. It is horrible and I don't recommend it to anyone. So, this concludes my top 10 most hated comics. I really don't think anybody is gonna disagree with my number one. Brian Wood's Star Wars is such fucking atrocious garbage. Anyway, that's that. So now I did favorite and least favorite books, favorite and least favorite comics. So next up I might move into the character lists. That might be fun. Or maybe not. Probably not.